The ivory gown hangs like a specter in the glass-walled penthouse, yards of silk that cost more than most people earn in a year. Lena Whitmore stares at it and feels her throat close. In 6 hours, she'll wear it. In 12, she'll discover her fiancé already has a wife. The anonymous text burning in her palm says so, and every instinct she's ignored for the past 18 months is screaming that it's true. Outside, Manhattan glitters with indifference. Inside, the walls are closing in. If you're watching from somewhere far from here, drop a comment with your city. I want to know how far this story travels. Hit that like button and stay until the end, because what starts as a perfect wedding becomes something nobody sees coming. Lena's fingers trembled against the phone screen. She read the message again, though she'd already memorized every word. He's not who you think he is. Boston, 447 Marlborough Street. Go see for yourself. No name, no explanation, just an address that sat in her chest like a stone. The rehearsal dinner started in 4 hours. Her mother had flown in from Sacramento. Grayson's colleagues, half the legal elite of Manhattan, were already gathering at the River Club, where centerpieces cost what her first apartment's rent used to be. Everything was perfect. Everything had always been perfect with Grayson Caldwell. That was the problem. Lena set the phone down on the marble kitchen island and pressed her palms flat against the cold surface. Her engagement ring caught the light. 3 carats, flawless, chosen without her input. Like everything else. "You're overthinking," she whispered to herself. But her voice sounded hollow in the too clean space. The penthouse was silent, except for the hum of climate control. Grayson had left at dawn for depositions, kissing her forehead with the same measured affection he applied to everything. She'd stopped trying to read emotion in it months ago. He wasn't cold exactly. He was calibrated. She picked up the phone again. The message had arrived at 3:47 a.m. She'd been awake. Had been awake for hours, actually, staring at the ceiling while Grayson slept undisturbed beside her. When the notification lit up the darkness, she'd slipped into the bathroom to read it. She'd stayed there until her legs went numb against the heated tile floor. Now, in the harsh clarity of afternoon light, she pulled up the Maps application. 447 Marlborough Street, Boston. A brownstone in Back Bay. The kind of address that spoke of old money and established families. Her finger hovered over the search bar. She could call Grayson, ask him directly. But something stopped her. The same something that had been stopping her from asking questions for the past year and a half. The way he'd changed her phone plan without mentioning it. "Better coverage," he'd said. The way her friends from college had gradually stopped calling after he'd suggested they were energy drains. The way he'd convinced her to quit her job at the nonprofit. "You deserve better than that salary, Lena." And then somehow her resume never quite got sent to the places she'd wanted to apply. Little things. Caring things, he'd called them. Now they felt like bars. Lena grabbed her laptop and opened a private browsing window. Her heart hammered as she typed the address into a property search database. The page loaded slowly, each second stretching. Then the screen filled with information. Owner, Grayson M. Caldwell. Her vision tunneled. She scrolled down. Residence, Grayson M. Caldwell, Charlotte Caldwell, Emma Caldwell, minor. The laptop speakers were muted, but Lena heard a sound anyway. A high, thin ringing in her ears. She clicked through to the county records. Marriage license. Grayson Marcus Caldwell and Charlotte Ann Brennan, filed 6 years ago. 6 years. They'd been engaged for 18 months. He'd told her he'd never been married. She'd asked directly, early on, because she'd wanted to know. He'd smiled that easy smile and said, "Came close once, but no. I was waiting for the right person." Lena closed the laptop with shaking hands. Her phone buzzed. Grayson's name appeared on the screen. "Running late. Depositions are a nightmare. Can you confirm the final count with the River Club? Love you. Love you." 2 words he'd started adding to messages about 6 months in, always as a closing, never as a conversation. She stared at the text until the screen went dark. Then she grabbed her keys. The train to Boston left Penn Station at 2:15. Lena bought the ticket with cash from an ATM 3 blocks from the penthouse, a paranoia she didn't fully understand but couldn't shake. Grayson had access to all their accounts. Joint finances were practical, he'd said. Easier. She wore sunglasses even though the day was overcast, and she kept her phone in her purse, screen down. Every buzz made her flinch. The ride took 3.5 hours. Lena spent them staring out the window, watching the landscape blur from urban density to stretches of industrial nothing. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She'd left a voicemail for her mother, food poisoning, so sorry, postponing the dinner. Her voice had sounded surprisingly steady on the recording. Years of board presentations had taught her how to lie with confidence. The train pulled into South Station at 5:52 p.m. Lena stepped onto the platform and felt the weight of what she was doing settle over her. She could still turn around, could go home, delete the message, walk down that aisle tomorrow like none of this had happened. But she was already moving toward the exit. The brownstone on Marlborough Street was exactly what she'd expected. Elegant, expensive, dripping with the kind of understated wealth that never needed to announce itself. Window boxes held late-season flowers. The front steps were swept clean. A child's bicycle leaned against the iron railing. Lena stood across the street for 10 minutes before she found the courage to move. Her fingers shook as she pressed the doorbell. Footsteps inside. Light, quick. The door opened. The woman who answered was younger than Lena had imagined. Maybe 30, with dark hair pulled into a careless ponytail and paint-stained jeans, pretty in an unfussy way, tired around the eyes. "Can I help you?" Her tone was polite but wary, the wariness of someone used to unwanted solicitations. Lena's throat closed. Every word she'd rehearsed on the train evaporated. She stopped, started again. "Is Grayson Caldwell here?" The woman's expression shifted. Something guarded dropped into place. "Who's asking?" Lena forced the words out. "I'm his fiancée." The silence that followed was profound. Then the woman's face did something complicated. A flash of recognition, then understanding, then something that looked almost like pity. She stepped back from the door. "You should come in." The interior of the brownstone was warm and lived in a way the Manhattan penthouse had never been. Books stacked on surfaces. A child's drawing taped to the refrigerator. The smell of something cooking. Tomato sauce, garlic. Charlotte, because this had to be Charlotte, gestured toward the kitchen table. "Sit." Lena sat. Charlotte remained standing, arms crossed. She studied Lena with an expression that was hard to read. Not angry, exactly. More resigned. "How long?" Charlotte asked. "What?" "How long has he been with you?" 18 months. We're getting married tomorrow." Charlotte laughed, a short, sharp sound without humor. "No, you're not." "I don't understand." "Yes, you do. That's why you're here." Charlotte moved to the counter, poured 2 glasses of water without asking if Lena wanted one. She set them on the table and sat down across from her. "You got a message." It wasn't a question. "How did you—" "Because I sent it." Lena's hand froze halfway to the water glass. Charlotte leaned back in her chair. "Emma's upstairs doing homework. My daughter, she's 5. Grayson sees her maybe once a month. Tells her he travels for work. Tells me he's working on making things right, on building something stable before he can really be present." She smiled bitterly. "I believed him for a long time." "You knew about me." "Not until 3 weeks ago. I hired a PI. Thought he might be having an affair." Charlotte's laugh was hollow. "Turns out it's bigger than that." Lena felt the room tilt. "What do you mean, bigger?" Charlotte reached for her phone, pulled up a folder of screenshots, and slid it across the table. Bank statements, corporate filings, email chains, photos of Grayson with men Lena didn't recognize, taken in cities she'd never heard him mention. Tokyo, Dubai, Sao Paulo. "Your fiancé," Charlotte said quietly, "is very good at building compartments. Separate lives, separate accounts, separate versions of himself." She tapped one of the screenshots. "This account? Registered to a shell company in the Caymans. That one? Routed through a firm in Luxembourg. I don't even understand half of what the PI found, but I understand enough." "Enough for what?" "Enough to know he's not just a lawyer with a secret family. He's into something dangerous." Lena's pulse hammered in her ears. "What kind of dangerous?" "The kind where people disappear when they ask questions." Charlotte's voice was flat. 3 years ago, one of his associates died in a car accident. The police called it mechanical failure. His widow said the brakes were fine the day before. 2 years ago, a paralegal who worked on some of his cases quit and moved to Portland. I tracked her down. She wouldn't talk to me. Hung up the second I mentioned Grayson's name. That doesn't mean I know how it sounds. Conspiracy theory, right? Paranoid wife who can't accept her husband's just a cheat. Charlotte's eyes were hard. But you're here. So some part of you already knows I'm right. Lena wanted to argue, wanted to defend the man she'd agreed to marry, but her hands were shaking and her throat was tight, and somewhere deep in her chest, a voice was screaming that Charlotte wasn't wrong. Why didn't you go to the police? With what? Suspicious bank accounts and a dead guy from 3 years ago? Grayson's connected, Lena. Half the judges in Boston owe him favors. His firm represents people you don't say no to. Charlotte leaned forward. I sent you that message because you deserve to know what you're walking into, and because… She stopped, her jaw working. Because I wanted someone else to carry this. I'm tired. I've been carrying it alone for too long. Upstairs, a door opened. Small footsteps on hardwood. Mommy? Charlotte's expression shifted instantly, all the hardness replaced by warmth. Yeah, baby? Can I have a snack? 5 minutes. Finish your spelling words first. The footsteps retreated. Lena stared at the woman across from her. What am I supposed to do? Charlotte's smile was sad. That's up to you. You can go back to Manhattan. Marry him tomorrow. Pretend this conversation never happened. Maybe it'll work out. Maybe he'll keep you separate from whatever else he's involved in. You don't believe that? No, I don't. Lena's phone buzzed in her purse. She didn't reach for it. There's one more thing, Charlotte said. She hesitated, as if weighing whether to continue. Then she slid one final photo across the table. It was grainy, clearly pulled from security footage. Grayson standing in what looked like an underground parking garage, talking to a man Lena didn't recognize. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m., 4 months ago. That's the night before you two got engaged, Charlotte said quietly. I know because I checked your social media. You posted about the proposal the next morning. Lena studied the photo. Grayson's body language was tense. The other man's face was partially obscured, but there was something predatory in his posture. Who is he? I don't know. I couldn't ID him. But look at Grayson's hand. Lena looked. Grayson was holding an envelope, thick, like it contained documents. The next day, Charlotte continued, $200,000 moved through one of those shell accounts. And the day after that, he proposed to you. The implication hung in the air between them. Lena pushed back from the table. Her chair scraped against the floor, too loud in the quiet kitchen. I need to go. Charlotte nodded. I know. At the door, Lena turned back. Why did you really send that message? The truth. Charlotte met her eyes. Because I saw your engagement photos. The way you smiled. You looked so happy. Her voice cracked. I used to look like that too, before I understood what I'd married into, and I thought… She stopped, swallowed hard. I thought maybe I could save someone else from learning too late. Popan. The train back to New York departed at 9:30. Lena sat in the last car as far from other passengers as possible. Her phone had 11 missed calls from Grayson, 6 from her mother. Texts asking where she was, if she was okay, whether she needed to reschedule the rehearsal dinner. She'd already rescheduled. Called the River Club from the Boston train station, voice steady, apologizing for the last-minute change. Food poisoning. So embarrassing. Tomorrow's still on, of course. The lie had come easily. Too easily. The city lights of New York appeared in the distance around midnight. Lena watched them grow brighter, closer. The penthouse would be dark. Grayson would be asleep, or pretending to be. She'd slip in quietly, take a shower, crawl into bed beside him. And then what? She didn't have an answer. Her phone buzzed again. Not Grayson this time. A number she didn't recognize. I know you went to Boston. We need to talk. Tomorrow. Alone. Don't tell him. Lena's breath caught. She typed with shaking fingers. Who is this? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Someone who can help you, if you're smart enough to ask for it. How do I know this isn't Grayson? Because if it was, you'd already be in danger. Lena stared at the screen until it blurred. Then she typed, Where? The response was immediate. Bethesda Fountain, 2 p.m. Come alone. And Lena? Leave your phone at home. He's tracking it. The message thread disappeared, deleted remotely, like it had never existed. Lena sat in the dark train car and felt her carefully constructed life shatter into pieces too small to reassemble. The wedding was in 16 hours. She had until tomorrow afternoon to decide whether to walk down that aisle or run. Lena slipped into the penthouse at 1:30 a.m. The lights were off, but she could feel Grayson's presence like a physical weight. He was awake. She knew it the way you know when you're being watched. "Lena?" His voice came from the bedroom, calm, controlled. "I'm here." She set her purse down carefully, her movements deliberate. "Sorry I worried you." "You didn't answer your phone." "I know. I'm sorry." Footsteps. Then Grayson appeared in the doorway, backlit from the bedroom. She couldn't see his face. "Where were you?" The question was casual. The silence after it was not. "I needed air. Went for a walk." The lie tasted like metal. "Got overwhelmed. Pre-wedding jitters." "For 8 hours?" "I ended up at a movie, turned my phone off. I just needed to—" She forced her voice to crack. "I just needed to not think for a while." The silence stretched. Then Grayson moved forward into the light, and Lena saw his expression, concern layered over something harder. He pulled her into his arms. She let him. "You scared me," he murmured against her hair. "Don't do that again." "I won't." His hand came up to stroke her back, the gesture tender in a way that made her skin crawl. "Tomorrow's going to be perfect. You know that, right? Everything you've ever wanted." Lena pressed her face against his shoulder so he couldn't see her expression. "I know. Get some sleep. We have a long day ahead." She nodded and pulled away, moving toward the bathroom. In the mirror, her reflection looked like a stranger's. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., she'd meet whoever had sent that message. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., she was supposed to become Mrs. Grayson Caldwell. One of those things was going to happen. Lena wasn't sure which one terrified her more. She turned on the shower and let the water run until steam filled the room. Then she sat on the floor of the stall, fully clothed, and tried to remember the last time she'd made a choice that felt entirely her own. The water beat down. The apartment was silent beyond the bathroom door. And somewhere in Boston, Charlotte was putting her daughter to bed, carrying secrets too heavy for one person to hold. Lena closed her eyes and tried to breathe. 16 hours. The clock was running. Lena didn't sleep. She lay beside Grayson in the dark, listening to his breathing even out into the rhythm of deep sleep, and counted the minutes until dawn. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Charlotte's face, the resignation in it, the warning. At 5:30 a.m., Grayson's alarm went off. He silenced it immediately and rolled toward her. "Morning, beautiful." She made herself smile. "Morning." His hand came up to her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. The gesture should have felt intimate. Instead, it felt like he was checking for cracks. "How are you feeling? Better than last night?" "Much better. I think I just needed to get it out of my system." "Good." He kissed her forehead and slid out of bed. "I have to be at the office by 7. Last-minute details on the Henderson merger. Should be back by noon." "On our wedding day?" "It's just a few hours. You know how it is." He disappeared into the bathroom. The shower started running. Lena stared at the ceiling and felt her heart hammer against her ribs. She waited until she heard him in the shower before moving. Her phone sat on the nightstand, charging. She unplugged it and opened the settings, fingers shaking as she navigated to location services. Grayson had installed a family sharing app 6 months ago. "Just in case of emergencies," he'd said. She turned it off. The shower shut off. Lena shoved the phone under her pillow and forced her breathing to slow. Grayson emerged 10 minutes later, already dressed in one of his precisely tailored suits. He smelled like expensive cologne and confidence. "You're still in bed?" "Savoring the last morning before I become a wife." He smiled. "You'll be a beautiful wife." She watched him gather his briefcase, his phone, his keys. Each movement was economical, practiced. He lived his life like a deposition, no wasted words, no unnecessary gestures. At the door he paused. "Your phone, did you turn off location sharing?" Lena's blood turned cold. "What? No, why?" "It's showing as disabled on my end." "That's weird. Maybe it glitched when I turned it off at the movie yesterday." He studied her for a moment too long. Then he smiled. "Probably." Can you turn it back on? I like knowing you're safe. Of course. He left. Lena counted to 60. Then she got out of bed and went to the window, watched from 23 floors up as Grayson emerged onto the street below and climbed into a town car. The vehicle pulled away into Manhattan traffic. She turned on location sharing. Then she grabbed her laptop. The search history was dangerous, but she didn't care anymore. She typed, Julian Vale. The name had lived in the back of her mind for 7 years, a ghost she'd tried to bury. He'd been everything Grayson wasn't, raw, unpredictable, brutally honest. They'd met in college, burned through a relationship that was too intense to survive, and he disappeared from her life without explanation the summer after graduation. She'd looked for him once, found nothing. It was like he'd been erased. Now she wondered if that erasure had been deliberate. The search results were sparse. A few outdated social media profiles, all abandoned, no current address, no employment history, nothing. She tried different combinations. Julian Vale Manhattan, Julian Vale Consulting, Julian Vale Lawyer, nothing. Then she tried Julian Vale Boston, one result. A mention in a news article from 5 years ago about a financial fraud case. Vale had testified as an expert witness. The article didn't include a photo, but it listed his credentials. Former federal investigator, specialized in international money laundering. Lena's pulse spiked. She clicked through to related articles. Found another mention from 3 years ago, a case involving offshore shell companies. Julian Vale had been brought in as a consultant for the prosecution. The same kinds of shell companies Charlotte had shown her in Grayson's files. Lena closed the laptop and pressed her hands against her face. It couldn't be coincidence. Julian warning her not to trust anyone. Julian, who disappeared 7 years ago. Julian, who apparently specialized in exposing exactly the kinds of financial crimes Grayson seemed to be involved in. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Can't wait to see you walk down that aisle, sweetheart. Your father would be so proud. Lena's throat closed. Her father had died when she was 19, a stroke, sudden and brutal. He'd never met Grayson, would never know what she was walking into. She deleted the message without responding. At 11 a.m., she got dressed. Jeans, a plain sweater, sneakers, nothing that would draw attention. She pulled her hair into a ponytail and skipped makeup. The penthouse felt like a museum, perfect and cold, and utterly lifeless. She found Grayson's home office unlocked. Unusual, but maybe he'd been distracted this morning. His desk was pristine. File folders stacked precisely. Pens arranged by size. Lena opened the drawers systematically. Nothing incriminating, just office supplies and old case files. She moved to the filing cabinet. Locked. She checked the desk again, looking for a key. Found nothing. Checked the bookshelf, running her fingers along the spines. Behind a leather-bound set of legal encyclopedias, her fingers touched metal. The key was small, brass, attached to nothing. She took it to the filing cabinet. The lock turned smoothly. Inside were hanging folders, each labeled with what looked like client names. She pulled one at random. Peterson Holdings. Inside were contracts, account statements, correspondence. Everything looked legitimate. She tried another. Maritime Solutions, LLC. More of the same. Then she reached the back of the drawer and found a folder with no label, just a red tab. Lena pulled it out. The first document was a bank statement. Account holder, G.M. Caldwell. The amounts made her dizzy. Deposits in the high 6 figures, withdrawals just as large, all routed through banks she'd never heard of. The second document was a photo. Grayson and 3 other men standing in front of a yacht, all of them smiling, all of them wealthy in that specific way that comes from never having to think about money. Lena recognized one of the men. She'd seen his photo in the news, a hedge fund manager who'd been indicted for securities fraud last year. The case had collapsed when a key witness recanted. The third document was a list of names, no context, just names and dates. Michael Chen, April 15th, 2021. Sarah Voss, September 22nd, 2021. David Brennan, February 11th, 2022. Lena's breath stopped. David Brennan. Charlotte's maiden name was Brennan. She'd seen it on the marriage license. She pulled out her phone and searched. David Brennan, death 2022. The results loaded slowly, each second an eternity. Then she saw it. Journalist David Brennan, 34, dies in apparent suicide. The article was brief. Brennan had been found dead in his apartment in February 2022. The medical examiner ruled it suicide by overdose. He'd been working on an investigative piece about corruption in Boston's financial sector. Lena's hand shook so hard she nearly dropped the phone. Charlotte's brother. It had to be. She photographed every document in the folder with trembling fingers, then put everything back exactly as she'd found it. Locked the cabinet, replaced the key. It was 12:45 p.m. She had an hour and 15 minutes before the meeting at Bethesda Fountain. Grayson would be back by 1. Lena grabbed her coat and left her phone on the kitchen counter, still showing her location at the penthouse. Then she walked out the door. The subway was crowded with Saturday tourists. Lena stood pressed against the doors, watching the stations blur past. She'd taken the train hundreds of times. Now every face looked suspicious. Every glance felt loaded. She got off at 72nd Street and walked toward Central Park. The day was cold, the sky threatening rain. Tourists clustered around street performers and hot dog vendors. Lena moved through them like a ghost. Bethesda Fountain sat at the heart of the park, surrounded by stairs and terraces. The angel statue rose above the water, serene and indifferent. A few people sat on the benches. A couple took selfies. A man fed pigeons. Lena checked her watch. 1:58 p.m. She sat on a bench facing the fountain and waited. At exactly 2 p.m., someone sat down beside her. Lena turned and her breath caught. Julian Vale looked like he'd been carved from different material than the man she remembered. Harder, sharper. 7 years had stripped away the softness of his early 20s and left something tempered and dangerous. He didn't look at her, just stared at the fountain. "You came." His voice was the same, low and rough, like gravel under silk. "Who are you?" Lena whispered. "Really?" "Someone who made the mistake of caring about you." "That's not an answer." Julian finally turned to face her. His eyes were gray, the color of storms. "You went to Boston yesterday, talked to Charlotte, came back and slept next to him like nothing happened. That takes guts or stupidity. I'm not sure which. How did you—" "I've been watching him for 2 years, which means I've been watching you." Lena's skin crawled. "You're insane." "Probably." He leaned back against the bench, the picture of casual ease, but his hands were tense. "How much did Charlotte tell you?" "Enough." "The shell companies, the deaths, her brother?" Julian's jaw tightened. "David Brennan was a friend of mine. Good journalist. Better person. He got too close to something Grayson was involved in and ended up dead with a needle in his arm. David didn't use drugs. Ever. Why should I believe you? Because you're here instead of at the penthouse. Because you left your phone behind. Because some part of you already knows I'm telling the truth." Lena stared at the fountain. The angel seemed to judge her from above. "What does Grayson want from me?" "Cover, legitimacy. You're clean, Lena. No criminal record, no scandals. Good family, respectable career before he convinced you to quit. You make him look stable, normal. The kind of man who can be trusted with other people's money." "That's insane. He doesn't need me for that." "Yes, he does. Because in 6 months he's going to be indicted." Lena's head snapped toward him. "What?" "Federal investigation, RICO charges, money laundering, fraud, conspiracy. They've been building the case for 18 months. Your engagement timeline matches it almost exactly." "You're lying." "I'm the one who started the investigation." Julian's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. "Took me 4 years to get close enough to his operation to build a case. And then you showed up in his life and complicated everything." "I don't understand." "Grayson targets people, Lena. Finds their vulnerabilities and exploits them. You think it's coincidence that he met you 3 months after you lost your job? That he swooped in with affection and stability right when you were at your lowest?" The words hit like physical blows. "He's been under surveillance for 2 years, Julian continued. Audio, video, financial tracking. We know about Charlotte. We know about the offshore accounts. We know about the people who've disappeared. What we need is someone on the inside who can access his files, someone he trusts. You want me to spy on him. I want you to survive. Those are different things, but they look similar right now." Lena stood up, Her legs felt unsteady. This is insane. I'm asking you to help me stop him before someone else dies. I'm supposed to marry him in 4 hours? Then don't. The simplicity of it almost made her laugh. Just run? Where? He'll find me. Not if you disappear the right way. Julian stood too, moving into her space, close enough that she could smell him, leather and coffee and something darker. I can protect you, but you have to choose it, right now. I don't even know you anymore. You never did. That was the problem. His expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across it before the hardness returned. I left because I had to. Because staying would have destroyed you. I was already working the Brennan case, already too deep. You deserved better than what I could give you. So you gave me nothing. Yeah, I did, and I've regretted it every day since. The confession hung between them. Lena shook her head. Why now? Why reach out after 7 years? Because I've been tracking Grayson's pattern. The women he targets, there were 2 before you. Both of them ended badly. One of them is missing. The other won't talk about what happened, even with immunity on the table. Julian's voice dropped. You're in danger, Lena. Real danger. And I couldn't watch him do to you what he did to them. You're asking me to trust you. I'm asking you to trust yourself. You came here. You went to Boston. You already know something's wrong. I'm just giving you a way out. Lena looked at the fountain, the angel, the tourists laughing in the distance. Normal people living normal lives. She'd had that once. Before Grayson. Before the penthouse, and the perfect dresses, and the suffocating sensation of walls closing in. What do I have to do? Julian's exhale was barely audible. Relief. First, you don't marry him. We stage an exit. Make it public, make it messy. You leave him at the altar, but you do it smart. With witnesses, with lawyers present. He'll ruin me. He'll try, but we'll be ready. And then? Then you disappear for a while. Let me finish the case. When it's over, you get your life back. What if I say no? Julian's smile was sad. Then I watch you walk down that aisle and hope I'm wrong about how this ends. But I'm not wrong, Lena. I've seen the pattern too many times. She closed her eyes, tried to think through the static in her head. Her phone was at the penthouse. Grayson would see she'd left, would already be wondering where she'd gone. How much time did she have before he came looking? I need proof, she whispered. Something concrete, not just conspiracy theories and dead journalists. Julian reached into his jacket and pulled out a flash drive. Everything's on here, bank records, surveillance footage, witness statements. Enough to bury him 10 times over. Why give this to me? Why not just arrest him? Because we need his laptop. It's encrypted, and we can't crack it without alerting him. But if you can access it, copy the files, we can move faster, save lives. He paused. There's a shipment coming in next week. If we don't stop it, 6 people are going to die in a warehouse fire, staged to look like an accident. Grayson's been paid to make sure the insurance claim goes through. Lena's stomach turned. That's who you're marrying. She took the flash drive with numb fingers. There's a laptop in my apartment, she said slowly. It's not his work computer, but he uses it sometimes. I could... No, too risky. He'll know if you access his files. We need you out first, safe. Then we can worry about evidence. So I just run. You choose yourself. That's not running. That's survival. Lena looked at him, really looked. Saw the lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 7 years ago. The scar along his jaw. The weight he carried in his shoulders. If I do this, she said quietly, I lose everything. My life. My reputation. Everyone will think I'm insane. Better insane than dead. That's not reassuring. I'm not trying to reassure you. I'm trying to save you. The honesty of it cut through her defenses. I need time to think. Julian checked his watch. You have 3 hours before you're supposed to be at the venue. After that, the pattern says things get dangerous. He doesn't like being embarrassed. What does that mean? It means the last woman who tried to leave him ended up in the hospital with injuries she claimed came from a fall. She withdrew the police report the next day. Julian's expression was dark. I can't prove Grayson was involved, but I know he was. Lena felt the world tilt. Julian reached out like he was going to touch her arm, then stopped himself. I have a car 2 blocks from here. You can walk away right now, and I'll get you somewhere safe. Or you can go back to the penthouse and hope I'm wrong. Your choice. Some choice. It's the only one that matters. Lena looked at the fountain one more time. The angel stared back, offering nothing. Then she turned and started walking. Julian fell into step beside her, close enough to feel but not touching. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere he can't find you. He'll find me. He finds everything. Not this time. They walked in silence through the park. Lena's mind raced, trying to process everything. The documents in Grayson's office, Charlotte's warnings, David Brennan's death, Julian's sudden reappearance. It was too much, too fast. At the edge of the park, a black SUV waited. Julian opened the passenger door. Lena hesitated. This was it. The moment. Get in the car and her life changed forever. Walk away and… what? Go back to the penthouse? Pretend this conversation never happened? She thought about Grayson's hand on her face this morning. The way he'd checked if she'd turned off location sharing. The quiet control in every gesture. She got in the car. Julian slid into the driver's seat and pulled into traffic without a word. They drove for 20 minutes in silence. Lena watched the city blur past, trying to convince herself this was real, that she wasn't making a catastrophic mistake. Finally, Julian spoke. There's something you need to know. There's more? The reason I disappeared 7 years ago. It wasn't just the Brennan case. He kept his eyes on the road. I was recruited by a task force investigating organized crime networks, deep cover work. I couldn't tell you because telling you would have made you a target. So you just vanished. I protected you the only way I knew how. By breaking my heart. Julian's hands tightened on the wheel. Yeah, by breaking your heart. The honesty disarmed her. Why tell me now? Because you deserve the truth. And because if you're going to trust me, you need to understand what you're getting into. This isn't just about Grayson. It's bigger than him. He's a piece of something that spans continents. Lena closed her eyes. I can't do this. Yes, you can. You don't know that. I know you. You're stronger than you think. You knew me 7 years ago. People change. Not that much. Julian glanced at her, and for the first time since the park, his expression softened. You're still the woman who told off a professor in front of the entire class for grading bias. Still the one who organized protests for campus workers. You had fire, Lena. Grayson's been trying to put it out, but it's still there. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that she wasn't that person anymore. But sitting in this car, fleeing her own wedding, she felt something stir that she hadn't felt in months. Anger. Not at Julian, at Grayson, at herself for not seeing it sooner. They pulled up to a building in Brooklyn. Industrial, anonymous. Julian parked in an underground garage and killed the engine. Where are we? Safe house. It's clean. No connection to me or the investigation. How long do I have to stay here? As long as it takes. That wasn't an answer, but Lena didn't have the energy to push. She followed Julian into an elevator, then down a hallway that smelled like fresh paint. He unlocked a door and gestured her inside. The apartment was small but functional. Kitchen, living area, bedroom visible through an open door. Everything generic and temporary. There's food in the fridge, Julian said. Burner phone on the counter. Don't call anyone from your old life. Don't check social media. Don't… I know. I'm not stupid. I didn't say you were. Lena turned to face him. What happens now? I go back to work. Build the case. You stay here and stay safe. For how long? Weeks. Maybe a month. And then? And then we finish this. She laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but it's necessary. Julian moved toward the door, then stopped, turned back. Lena. What? I'm sorry. For everything. For leaving. For dragging you into this. For… Don't! She held up a hand. I can't process apologies right now. I can barely process breathing. He nodded. There's a number programmed into the burner. Use it if you need anything. Otherwise, I'll check in every 48 hours. What do I tell myself in the meantime? How do I make sense of any of this? Julian's expression was unreadable. You don't. You just survive it. Then he was gone, and Lena was alone in a strange apartment in Brooklyn while somewhere in Manhattan her wedding was supposed to start in less than 3 hours. She sank onto the couch and pulled out the flash drive Julian had given her. A laptop sat on the coffee table, presumably left there for her use. She booted it up and inserted the drive. Files loaded, hundreds of them. She clicked on a folder labeled Surveillance. Video footage appeared on screen. Grainy security camera footage showing Grayson entering a building she didn't recognize. The timestamp read 11:34 p.m. 6 weeks ago. He emerged 20 minutes later. Not alone. The man with him was the same one from the photo Charlotte had shown her. The garage photo from the night before their engagement. Lena clicked to the next file. Audio recording, voices she recognized. Grayson. The timeline's tight. If we don't move the product by the 15th, the whole deal collapses. Unknown voice. Your problem, not mine. I deliver what I'm paid to deliver. Grayson. And if there are complications? Unknown voice. Then complications get resolved, permanently. The recording ended. Lena's hands were shaking so hard she could barely work the trackpad. She opened another file. Bank records showing transfers that matched the dates of David Brennan's death, the paralegal's sudden departure, the associate's car accident. Pattern after pattern after pattern. The evidence was overwhelming, and she'd almost married him. Lena closed the laptop and pressed her face into her hands. Her phone, the real one, left behind at the penthouse, would be buzzing now. Grayson would be calling, her mother, the wedding coordinator, everyone wondering where she'd gone. In a few hours, they'd realize she wasn't coming. The scandal would be immediate and brutal, but she'd be alive. Lena stood and walked to the window. Brooklyn stretched out below, a maze of buildings and lives she'd never intersect with, anonymous and safe. The burner phone rang. She stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Hello? It's me, Julian's voice. I just got word. Grayson knows you're gone. He's looking for you. How do you know? Because he just called in favors with half the NYPD. You're officially a missing person. Concerned fiancé worried about his unstable bride who disappeared on their wedding day. Lena's blood ran cold. He's making me sound crazy. He's building a narrative. If you show up now, anything you say about him gets filtered through that lens. Runaway bride, mental breakdown. He's good at this, Lena. He's done it before. So what do I do? You stay exactly where you are. Don't go out, don't contact anyone, let him think you're having a breakdown. It buys us time. Time for what? To move faster. I'm accelerating the investigation. We go public in 72 hours, with or without his laptop. And if it's not enough? Julian was quiet for a moment. Then we improvise. The line went dead. Lena set the phone down and looked around the safe house that would be her prison for the foreseeable future. Outside, the sun was setting. Her wedding ceremony should be starting. Instead, she was here, alone, hunted. And for the first time in 18 months, she felt like herself. Broken, terrified, furious, but herself. She pulled the flash drive from the laptop and held it up to the fading light. This was the evidence, the truth, the thing that could end Grayson's empire. All she had to do was survive long enough to use it. The burner phone rang again. Different number this time. Lena's heart stopped. She answered. Hello? Silence. Then breathing. Lena. Grayson's voice was silk over steel. Where are you, sweetheart? Everyone's worried. Her throat closed. I know you're scared, he continued. I know this is overwhelming, but you don't have to run. Come home. We'll talk. Figure this out together. She couldn't speak. I'm not angry, Grayson said. I'm concerned. You left your phone, your wallet. You're out there alone without any resources. That's dangerous, Lena. Let me help you. How did you get this number? His laugh was soft. I have a lot of resources, sweetheart. Did you really think you could disappear? From me. Every word felt like a noose tightening. Julian can't protect you, Grayson continued. I know he's involved. I know what he's told you, but he's using you, Lena. He doesn't care about you. He cares about his case. You're just a tool to him. That's not, come home. We'll forget this happened. Fresh start. I'll even postpone the wedding if you need time. Whatever you want. The offer was poison disguised as mercy. Go to hell. She hung up. The phone immediately rang again. Lena turned it off and threw it across the room. Then she sank to the floor and tried to breathe through the panic clawing at her chest. Grayson had found her burner number, which meant nowhere was safe, which meant Julian had been wrong, and Lena was trapped in a war she didn't know how to fight. The flash drive felt heavy in her hand. Somewhere in Manhattan, her wedding venue was filled with confused guests and a groom who would stop at nothing to find her. And somewhere in the shadows, Julian was building a case that might not be fast enough to save her. Lena closed her eyes and made a choice. If she was going down, she was taking Grayson with her. She powered the phone back on and dialed Julian's number. He answered on the first ring. He called me, she said. On the burner, he knows where I am. Julian cursed. Pack whatever you can carry in 60 seconds. I'm coming to get you. There's no time, he's probably already... The apartment door exploded inward. Lena screamed, but it wasn't Grayson who stepped through. It was someone worse. The man who stepped through the shattered doorway wasn't Grayson. He was older, maybe 50, with silver hair and the kind of face that spoke of boardrooms and country clubs. His suit probably cost more than Lena's first car. He moved with the casual confidence of someone who'd never been told no in his life. Behind him stood two others, younger, harder. Security, clearly, though they wore expensive suits instead of uniforms. The older man smiled at Lena like they were meeting at a cocktail party. Miss Whitmore, I apologize for the dramatic entrance. The door was reinforced. We had to be efficient. Lena pressed herself against the far wall, phone still clutched in her hand. Julian's voice was a tiny sound from the speaker. Lena, what's happening? Talk to me. The older man crossed the room in 3 strides and plucked the phone from her grip. He held it to his ear. Mr. Vale, this is Marcus Harding. I believe we have a mutual problem. He ended the call and pocketed the phone. Lena's voice came out strangled. Who are you? A friend of Grayson's, more accurately, a business associate. Marcus gestured to one of the men behind him. Check the rest of the apartment. The security detail disappeared into the bedroom and bathroom. Lena heard drawers opening, closets being searched. Marcus settled onto the couch like he owned it. Please sit. We should talk. I'm not sitting anywhere with you. Suit yourself. Though I should mention that running would be inadvisable. My colleagues are quite fast and the building is currently surrounded. The casual delivery made it worse, like he was discussing traffic patterns instead of imprisonment. Grayson sent you. Grayson asked for help locating his missing fiancée. I offered assistance. Marcus crossed his legs. He's quite worried about you. Thinks you might be having some sort of breakdown. I'm not. Of course you're not. You're perfectly lucid, which makes this situation more complicated. His smile didn't reach his eyes. You've been talking to Julian Vale, accessing files you shouldn't have access to, making accusations about my business partner based on information you don't fully understand. I understand enough. Do you? Marcus leaned forward. Do you understand that Julian Vale is a federal agent operating outside his jurisdiction? That he's been harassing legitimate businessmen for years, trying to build cases that consistently fail in court? That his obsession with Grayson has cost him his credibility within his own agency? The words hit like physical blows. You're lying. Am I? Did Julian tell you he was suspended 6 months ago for misconduct? That his superiors ordered him to stop investigating Grayson Caldwell because there was insufficient evidence to proceed? Lena's throat closed. He didn't mention that part, did he? Marcus's tone was almost sympathetic. Julian Vale is a brilliant investigator whose personal vendetta has destroyed his professional judgment. He's convinced Grayson is some kind of criminal mastermind when the reality is much simpler. Grayson is a successful attorney with complicated finances, that's all. What about Charlotte? What about David Brennan? Charlotte is Grayson's ex-wife. They have a contentious relationship. Divorce does that to people. As for David Brennan, tragic case. Addiction is a terrible disease. He didn't use drugs. According to his sister, who was in denial about her brother's problems, the medical examiner found otherwise. Police investigated and closed the case. Unless you're suggesting a conspiracy that involves the Boston PD, the medical examiner's office, and multiple federal agencies, the logic was airtight, too airtight. Lena forced herself to breathe. The flash drive. Julian gave me evidence. Julian gave you carefully curated files designed to support his narrative, bank statements taken out of context, surveillance footage that proves nothing illegal, audio recordings edited to sound incriminating. Marcus stood and walked to the window. I've seen his evidence packages before. They're impressive, detailed, and completely useless in court, which is why no prosecutor will touch them. I don't believe you. You don't have to believe me, but consider this. If Grayson was really involved in criminal activity, why would Julian need you to access his laptop? Why not get a warrant? Why not use official channels? Marcus turned to face her. Because he can't. Because there's no probable cause. Because he's operating alone, outside the law, using you as his unwitting accomplice. The security detail returned from their search. One of them handed Marcus a laptop, the one from the coffee table. Marcus examined it briefly, then removed the flash drive still inserted in the USB port. He held it up to the light. This drive contained stolen financial records, illegally obtained surveillance, and falsified documents. Possessing it makes you complicit in Julian's crimes. He slipped it into his pocket. Lucky for you, Grayson is more interested in helping you than pressing charges. Helping me? Lena's laugh was jagged. He's been controlling me for 18 months. He's been supporting you. There's a difference. You lost your job, Lena. You were depressed, directionless. Grayson offered stability, love, a future, and you thanked him by running away on your wedding day based on conspiracy theories from a disgraced federal agent. Each word landed with surgical precision. Where is he? Lena whispered. Where's Grayson? Dealing with the aftermath of your disappearance. The venue had to be canceled, guests sent home. Your mother is beside herself with worry. Grayson's spending the evening managing a crisis you created. Guilt crashed over her. Her mother. She hadn't thought about her mother. Marcus must have seen it in her face because his expression softened. It's not too late to fix this. Come back. Apologize. Get the help you clearly need. Grayson's willing to forgive. To start over. All you have to do is walk away from Julian Vale and his manufactured evidence. And if I don't, the softness vanished. Then things get much more difficult for everyone involved. Julian will be arrested for his illegal investigation. You'll be implicated as an accessory. Your reputation, what's left of it, will be destroyed. And Grayson will be forced to protect himself legally, which means lawsuits, restraining orders, possibly criminal charges for defamation. It was a trap wrapped in velvet. I want to talk to Julian. That's not possible. Why not? Marcus checked his watch. Because by now he's already been taken into custody. Federal agents don't respond well to rogue operators, especially ones who break into private property and steal confidential files. Lena felt the floor drop away. You're bluffing. Am I? Call his number. See if he answers. One of the security detail, the younger one with dead eyes, handed Lena her burner phone. She dialed Julian's number with shaking fingers. It rang once, then a recorded message. The number you have reached is not in service. She tried again. Same result. Marcus took the phone back. Julian Vale made the mistake of caring more about revenge than reality. Don't make the same mistake. What do you want from me? A simple choice. Come back to Grayson voluntarily. Issue a statement explaining that you had a panic attack, that Julian Vale took advantage of your vulnerable state, and that you're seeking treatment. Do that, and everyone moves forward. Or refuse, and watch everything you care about burn. That's not a choice. It's the only one you have. Lena looked at the broken door, the men blocking it, the city beyond the windows that suddenly felt like a cage. How long do I have to decide? You've already decided. You just haven't accepted it yet. Marcus moved toward the door. My colleagues will drive you back to Manhattan. Grayson's waiting. And if I try to run? Marcus paused. Then we stop being polite. The security detail moved closer, flanking her. Not touching, but the threat was clear. Lena's mind raced. Julian was gone, arrested or worse. The evidence was confiscated. Charlotte was too far away to help. She was alone, cornered, with no allies and no options. Except, I need to use the bathroom first. Marcus considered this. Nodded. You have 2 minutes. Lena walked to the bathroom, on legs that barely held her. She closed the door and locked it. A pointless gesture, but it gave her the illusion of privacy. The window was too small to climb through. No weapons except a toothbrush and soap. No phone. No way out. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, pale, terrified, trapped. This was it. The moment where she either surrendered or fought back. But how do you fight when you have nothing left? Her eyes landed on the medicine cabinet. She opened it, found nothing useful, just generic toiletries and first aid supplies. Then she saw the razor. Not a weapon, not really, but maybe enough to buy time. She grabbed it and shoved it in her pocket. The door handle rattled. Time's up, Miss Whitmore. Lena took one last look at herself. Then she unlocked the door and stepped out. Marcus studied her face. Feeling better? No? Honest, I appreciate that. He gestured toward the exit. Shall we? The ride back to Manhattan happened in silence. Lena sat in the back of a black SUV between the two security guards while Marcus rode up front. The city lights blurred past, familiar and alien at the same time. She tried to process what Marcus had said. About Julian being suspended. About the evidence being fabricated. About Grayson being innocent. It would be so easy to believe it. To accept that she'd made a terrible mistake. That her paranoia had destroyed a good thing. But she couldn't shake the memory of Charlotte's face. The resignation. The fear. Charlotte had been terrified of Grayson. That part wasn't fabricated. They pulled up to the penthouse building just after 9 p.m. The doorman's eyes widened when he saw Lena being escorted inside by 3 men in expensive suits, but he said nothing, just held the door and looked away. The elevator ride to the 23rd floor felt like ascending to an execution. Marcus broke the silence. Grayson's prepared a statement for you to review. Once you approve it, we'll release it to the media. The story becomes a sympathetic one. Bride overwhelmed by wedding pressure, manipulated by an obsessed ex-boyfriend with a grudge against the groom. You'll come out of this looking like a victim, not a criminal. How generous. It's practical. Grayson's reputation matters. Yours matters by extension. We protect both by controlling the narrative. The elevator doors opened. Grayson stood in the penthouse doorway, backlit from the interior lights. He looked exhausted, tie loosened, shirt rumpled, hair disheveled in a way she'd never seen before. When he saw her, his expression crumpled with relief. Lena. Thank God. He pulled her into his arms before she could react. The embrace was tight, almost desperate. To anyone watching, it would have looked like genuine emotion. Lena stood rigid in his grip. I was so worried, Grayson murmured against her hair. When you didn't show up, when your phone went dark, I thought the worst. Marcus cleared his throat. I'll leave you two to talk. My colleagues will wait downstairs. The security detail retreated to the elevator. Marcus followed, giving Grayson a meaningful look before the doors closed. Then they were alone. Grayson released her and stepped back, studying her face. Are you hurt? Did Julian hurt you? No. Did he tell you things? About me? About us? Lena's throat was tight. He told me a lot of things. I can imagine. Julian Vale has been trying to destroy me for years, ever since I testified against one of his cases and got it thrown out. He's never forgiven me for making him look incompetent. Is that true? Every word. I have the court transcripts if you want to read them. Grayson moved to the bar and poured 2 glasses of whiskey. He handed her one. I should have told you about him sooner, about the harassment, the false accusations, but I didn't want to worry you. Lena stared at the glass. What about Charlotte? Grayson's expression tightened. What about her? You're still married to her. We're separated. Have been for 3 years. The divorce paperwork is in progress. My lawyers can show you the filings. Charlotte and I tried to make it work for Emma's sake, but it was toxic. We agreed to keep things quiet until the legal process finished. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was ashamed. Because failed marriages aren't something you advertise when you're trying to start fresh with someone new. He set his glass down. I should have been honest. That's on me. But I never lied about my feelings for you, Lena. Everything else might be complicated, but that part's simple. I love you. The words should have meant something. A month ago they would have. Now they felt like manipulation. Julian said you killed David Brennan. Grayson's laugh was bitter. David Brennan was Charlotte's brother. A good man who struggled with addiction. I tried to help him, paid for rehab twice. He relapsed anyway. His death destroyed Charlotte. It's part of why our marriage fell apart. He met her eyes. I didn't kill him. I mourned him. Every answer was perfect. Too perfect. Lena took a sip of whiskey. It burned going down. Marcus said Julian was arrested. He crossed too many lines. Breaking and entering, theft, stalking. The feds had to act. Grayson moved closer. He used you, Lena. Saw you as a tool to get to me. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle of his obsession. He seemed to genuinely care. I'm sure he convinced himself he did. Obsession looks a lot like caring when you're inside it. Grayson's hand came up to her face, gentle. But he's gone now. It's just us. We can move past this. Lena let him touch her. Let him think she was accepting it. What happens now? Now you rest. Tomorrow we issue the statement. Next week we can try again. Small ceremony, just close family. Or we can wait. Whatever you need. You still want to marry me? After all this? I want you to get help. Professional help. Someone to talk to about what you're feeling. And yes, when you're ready, I still want to marry you. His smile was sad. I'm not giving up on us, Lena. Not because of Julian Vale's poison. It was a perfect performance. Caring, patient, understanding, and Lena didn't believe a word of it. But she smiled anyway. I'm exhausted. Can we talk more tomorrow? Of course. The guest room's ready if you want space, or... He gestured toward the bedroom. Whatever you're comfortable with. Guest room for tonight. I understand. Grayson led her down the hall to the smaller bedroom. It was pristine, untouched, like a hotel room. He kissed her forehead at the doorway. Get some sleep. Everything will look better in the morning. She waited until he closed the door, counted to 60. Then she moved to the window. 23 floors up, no fire escape, no balcony. She pulled out her phone. The burner Marcus had returned. Tried Julian's number again. Still disconnected. She tried Charlotte's number from memory. It rang 4 times. Then voicemail. Lena hung up without leaving a message. She was alone. Completely, utterly alone. She sat on the edge of the bed and pulled the razor from her pocket, turned it over in her hands. Then she went to work. It took 20 minutes to carefully remove the blade and fashion a crude tool by wrapping one end in toilet paper. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. She hid it inside the pillowcase. Then she lay down fully clothed and stared at the ceiling. The penthouse was silent except for the hum of climate control. Somewhere in the master bedroom, Grayson was probably making calls, coordinating with Marcus, planning the statement, tying up loose ends. And somewhere in the city, maybe in a holding cell, maybe worse, Julian was paying the price for trying to help her. Or he'd been lying all along and she'd destroyed her life for nothing. Lena closed her eyes and tried to think. The evidence on the flash drive. If it was real, it proved Grayson was guilty. If it was fake, it proved Julian was obsessed. But Marcus had taken it. She had no way to verify. Unless... Lena's eyes snapped open. The laptop. Grayson's personal laptop. The one Marcus had taken from the safe house. But Grayson had others. She'd seen him with a work laptop, a tablet, multiple devices. If she could access one of them, maybe she could find proof. Real proof, not filtered through Julian or Marcus. She waited until midnight. Then she slipped out of the guest room and moved silently down the hall. Grayson's home office door was closed but not locked. She eased it open inch by inch, heart hammering. The room was dark, empty. She crossed to the desk and powered on his computer. The screen glowed in the darkness. Password protected. She tried the obvious combinations. His birthday, Emma's birthday, their engagement date. Nothing. She tried Charlotte's birthday. The computer unlocked. Lena's pulse spiked. She navigated to the file directory and started searching. Most of it was innocuous. Case files, client correspondence, court documents. Then she found a folder labeled Personal. Inside were subfolders. Charlotte, Emma, Lena. She clicked on her own name. The folder contained dozens of files. Photos of her she didn't remember being taken. Screenshots of her social media activity. Copies of her emails, including ones from years before they'd met. Her hands shook as she scrolled. There were notes, detailed observations about her habits, her schedule, her vulnerabilities. Subject responds well to validation. Father's death remains primary emotional trigger. Career instability exploitable. Lena's vision blurred. It read like a psych evaluation or a stalker's journal. She clicked on the Charlotte folder. More of the same, years of documentation, notes about Charlotte's weaknesses, her fears, ways to control her. Subject has strong maternal instincts. Emma is primary leverage point. Threatening custody ensures compliance. Lena felt bile rise in her throat. She opened the Emma folder. Photos of a little girl, school schedules, medical records, and a subfolder labeled Insurance. Inside was a single video file. Lena's finger hovered over it, some instinct screaming not to look. She clicked anyway. The video showed a parking garage. Grainy security footage, a man walking to his car, David Brennan. She recognized him from news photos. He got in the driver's seat, started the engine. Then a figure emerged from the shadows, moved to the rear of the car, did something Lena couldn't quite see. The figure stepped back into darkness. 2 minutes later, David pulled out of the parking spot. The video followed him to the exit ramp, then to a busy street. Then the brakes failed. The car accelerated through a red light, swerved, hit a concrete barrier at highway speed. The footage ended. Lena couldn't breathe. She backed away from the computer like it might bite her. Grayson hadn't just documented David Brennan's death. He'd orchestrated it. And he'd kept the proof. Why? Why keep evidence of murder on a personal computer? Unless it wasn't evidence. Unless it was insurance. Leverage against whoever had helped him. The same way he kept files on Charlotte. On Emma. On Lena herself. This was his pattern. Document everything. Control everyone. Keep receipts. Lena's hands were shaking so hard she could barely work the keyboard. She pulled out the burner phone and started photographing the screen. Photos of the files, the notes, the folders. She got through 24 before the office door opened. Lena spun around. Grayson stood in the doorway, backlit from the hallway. His expression was impossible to read. "You should be asleep." "I couldn't sleep. I was looking for proof." His voice was flat. To see if Julian was telling the truth. There was no point lying. "Yes." Grayson stepped into the office and closed the door behind him. He moved to the desk and looked at the screen. Saw what she'd been viewing. His jaw tightened. "Did you find what you were looking for?" Lena's throat closed. The razor was in the guest room. Too far away. Her phone was in her hand, but who could she call? "I found enough." "Enough for what?" "Enough to know Julian was right about you." Grayson laughed, a cold, sharp sound. Julian was right about some things, wrong about others. The truth, as always, is more complicated. He sat on the edge of the desk, casual, relaxed, like they were discussing the weather. "David Brennan was Charlotte's brother," Grayson said quietly. "That part's true. He was also a journalist who was about to publish a story that would have destroyed several important people. People who paid me significant money to prevent that story from seeing print. So you killed him." "I facilitated an accident. There's a difference." The casual admission was somehow worse than denial. "And the others? The paralegal? The associate?" "Complications that needed resolution. This is a business, Lena. There are consequences for people who threaten the business." "You're insane." "I'm practical. There's a difference." Grayson stood and moved toward her. Lena backed away until she hit the wall. "Julian was right about my finances too," Grayson continued. "The shell companies, the offshore accounts. But he was wrong about one critical thing. He thought I was the head of the operation. I'm not. I'm middle management, a very well-compensated facilitator." "Then who?" "Marcus Harding. And about 24 others you've never heard of. People who move money and solve problems on a global scale. I'm just one piece." Lena's mind raced. Marcus, the man who'd seemed so reasonable, so rational. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you've already seen too much. And because I'm tired of pretending." Grayson's expression shifted, something genuine breaking through the polished surface. "I do care about you, Lena. That wasn't a lie. But caring doesn't change what I am, or what I do. Let me leave. I won't tell anyone. I'll disappear." "You really think that's an option? After what you've seen?" His smile was sad. "No one leaves, Lena. That's not how this works." "Then what happens to me?" Grayson was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. It's me. She found the files. Yes, all of them. I know. Send someone. He ended the call. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I really am. But you forced this. Lena lunged for the door. Grayson caught her arm, spun her back. She swung the phone at his face. Connected. He staggered back, blood streaming from his nose. She ran, down the hall, through the living room, toward the front door. It was locked, deadbolted from the inside. She fumbled with the mechanism. Grayson appeared behind her, grabbed her. She twisted, fought, clawed. He was stronger. He slammed her against the wall hard enough to rattle her teeth. Stop. She kneed him in the groin. He doubled over, and she grabbed a lamp off the side table and brought it down on his head. Grayson dropped. Lena didn't wait to see if he'd get up. She unlocked the deadbolt and threw open the door. Two men stood in the hallway. The security detail from earlier. They grabbed her before she could scream. She fought, bit one of them hard enough to draw blood. He swore and struck her across the face. Stars exploded behind her eyes. They dragged her back inside the penthouse. Grayson was getting to his feet, blood streaming from his scalp. Secure her, he said, voice thick. Marcus is sending a cleanup team. The security detail forced Lena into a chair. One of them produced zip ties and bound her wrists behind her back. She struggled until one of them put a hand around her throat. Don't. She stopped. Grayson pressed a towel to his head and stared at her. I didn't want this. You have to believe that. Go to hell. Probably, but not tonight. He pulled out his phone again, made another call. It's done. Secure location. Yes, I'll handle it. No, we can't. Too much exposure. I understand. He hung up. Then he looked at Lena with something that might have been regret. They're sending a transport. You'll be taken somewhere quiet, held until the investigation into Julian blows over. After that, he stopped. I don't know. That's above my pay grade. You're going to kill me. I'm going to do what I'm told, same as always. The resignation in his voice was chilling. Lena tested the zip ties. Too tight. Her wrists were already going numb. The burner phone was gone, confiscated by one of the guards. Her only weapon was in the guest room pillowcase. Useless now. She was out of options, out of time. The only thing left was survival, and she had no idea how to accomplish that. Grayson sat down across from her, still holding the bloody towel to his head. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said quietly, I really did love you, you know, as much as I'm capable of loving anyone. That's not love. That's ownership. Maybe. I've never been good at telling the difference. You're a monster. We're all monsters. Some of us just hide it better. He checked his watch. Transport will be here in 20 minutes. Is there anything you want to say? Anyone you want me to contact? My mother. I'll tell her you're getting help, that you're safe. She'll believe me. Everyone always does. Lena felt tears streak down her face. She'll know something's wrong. Eventually. But by then, the narrative will be set. Mentally unstable woman manipulated by an obsessed ex-boyfriend. Tragic, but understandable. These things happen. He was erasing her. The same way he'd erased David Brennan, the paralegal, the associate. She was just another complication being resolved. The front door opened. Marcus Harding entered, flanked by two more men Lena didn't recognize. He took one look at the scene. Grayson bloody, Lena zip-tied, security standing guard, and sighed. This could have been so much simpler. She found the files, Grayson said. Of course she did. I told you to wipe that computer. Marcus moved to Lena and crouched down to her eye level. You just couldn't leave it alone, could you? Julian was right about all of it. Julian Vale is sitting in a federal detention center being questioned about illegal surveillance and theft of evidence. His credibility is destroyed. Even if he talks, no one will believe him. Marcus stood. You, on the other hand, are about to disappear. Tragic accident. Or maybe suicide, distraught bride unable to cope. We'll workshop the details. People will ask questions. People always ask questions, then they move on. Memory is surprisingly short when the narrative is compelling enough. One of Marcus's men handed him a syringe. Lena's heart stopped. What is that? Something to keep you calm during transport. We can't have you making a scene. No, please. Marcus ignored her. He pushed up her sleeve and swabbed her arm with clinical efficiency. "This will hurt less if you don't struggle." Lena thrashed. The security detail held her still. The needle pierced her skin. Whatever they injected burned like fire through her veins. Then the room started to tilt. "Please," she whispered. "Please don't." But the words were already slurring. The edges of her vision went dark. The last thing she saw was Grayson's face, blank and remote, watching her lose consciousness. The last thing she heard was Marcus giving orders to the transport team. Then nothing. When Lena woke, she was moving. The vibration of an engine, the smell of leather and air freshener. She tried to sit up, couldn't. Her wrists were still bound, her ankles too, she realized. She was lying across a back seat. Her head felt like it was stuffed with cotton. Her mouth tasted like copper. She forced her eyes open, saw darkness outside the windows, city lights in the distance. They were leaving New York. She tried to speak. Her voice came out as a croak. The driver, one of Marcus's men, glanced in the rearview mirror. "She's awake." "Give her another dose," a second voice said. The other guard sitting in the passenger seat. "Boss said to wait until we're there, like..." "She's conscious. That's not protocol." "I'm not questioning Marcus's orders. Neither should you." They drove in silence after that. Lena counted the minutes, trying to fight through the fog in her head. She didn't know where "there" was. Didn't know what happened when they arrived. But she knew with absolute certainty that if she arrived at their destination, she wouldn't leave alive. She had to do something. Anything. The zip ties were too tight to break. But her hands were behind her back and the seatbelt wasn't fastened. She waited until they hit a stretch of highway. Dark. Few cars. Then she used every ounce of strength to sit up and throw herself forward, head first into the driver's seat. The impact was brutal. Her skull connected with the driver's shoulder. The car swerved. The passenger guard swore and grabbed for her. She twisted, got her bound feet up, and kicked him in the face. The car swerved again, harder. The driver was yelling, fighting for control. Lena kicked again, connected with the steering wheel. The car veered off the highway at 70 miles an hour. Everything became noise and motion and breaking glass. The world flipped, once, twice, then impact, metal screaming, her body slamming against surfaces, then silence. Lena lay in the wreckage, tasting blood, hearing nothing but a high-pitched ringing, pain everywhere, sharp and dull and everything in between. She forced her eyes open, saw darkness, shattered glass, steam rising from the hood. The driver was slumped over the wheel, not moving. The passenger guard was gone, thrown through the windshield maybe. Lena pulled herself free from the twisted metal, hands still bound, and crawled through the broken window. She made it 10 feet before collapsing. The highway was dark, empty. No cars, no witnesses. She lay on the cold asphalt and tried to breathe through the pain. In the distance, sirens began to wail. Someone had called it in. Lena closed her eyes and waited. Either help would arrive first, or Marcus's cleanup team would, and she had no control over which one it would be. The sirens grew louder, cutting through the ringing in Lena's ears. Red and blue lights painted the darkness in violent strokes. She lay on the cold asphalt, hands still bound behind her back, tasting blood and gasoline. A car door slammed. Footsteps running. "Jesus Christ, radio for an ambulance, now!" The voice was young, male, panicked. Lena forced her eyes open. A state trooper crouched beside her, his face pale in the flashing lights. "Ma'am, can you hear me? Don't move. Help's coming." She tried to speak. Her voice came out as a rasp. "Hands. Cut them." He saw the zip ties and his expression changed. "What the hell? Please, cut them." The trooper pulled a knife and sliced through the plastic. Blood rushed back into Lena's wrists in a wave of agony. She bit back a scream. "Who did this to you? Who was driving?" Lena's gaze shifted to the wreckage. Steam still rose from the crushed hood. The driver remained slumped over the wheel, motionless. Through the shattered windshield, she could see blood. "They were taking me," she whispered, "against my will." The trooper's hand went to his radio. "Dispatch, I need backup at mile marker 47. We've got a possible kidnapping victim. 2 suspects in the vehicle, both unresponsive. Victim is conscious, injuries unknown." More sirens in the distance. Lena's head swam. "Your name, ma'am?" She hesitated. Giving her real name meant alerts, meant Grayson and Marcus finding out she'd survived, but lying meant questions she couldn't answer. Lena Whitmore. The trooper's expression shifted, recognition flickering across his features. Wait, you're the woman from New York, the missing bride. There's an alert out for you. I wasn't missing. I was taken. By who? Before she could answer, headlights appeared on the highway. Not more police. A black SUV, moving fast. Lena's blood turned to ice. That's them. You have to get me out of here. The trooper stood, hand moving to his weapon. Stay down. The SUV pulled up 30 feet away. Doors opened. 3 men emerged. Marcus's cleanup team, dressed in dark suits that absorbed the light. The lead man held up a badge. Federal agents. We're here for the woman. The trooper didn't lower his weapon. Let me see some ID. We don't have time for this. That woman is wanted in connection with a federal investigation. We're taking her into custody. Then you can wait for my supervisor. Nobody moves until I verify your credentials. The lead man's expression hardened. He reached inside his jacket. Lena knew what was coming before the trooper did. Gun! She screamed. The trooper spun, weapon rising, but he was too slow. The crack of gunfire split the night. The trooper dropped, clutching his shoulder. Lena ran. Her body screamed in protest, ribs bruised or broken, head still foggy from whatever they'd injected her with. She made it 10 feet before hands grabbed her from behind. She twisted, clawed, fought like an animal, connected with someone's face, heard a satisfying crunch. Then something hard struck the back of her skull and the world tilted. She hit the ground hard. Blood in her mouth, vision swimming. Rough hands hauled her up, dragged her toward the SUV. The wounded trooper was yelling into his radio. Shots fired. Officer down. Suspects fleeing with the victim. One of Marcus's men fired twice. The radio exploded in the trooper's hand. They shoved Lena into the back of the SUV, slammed the door. The vehicle peeled out, tires shrieking. Through the rear window, she saw the trooper struggling to his feet, trying to reach for his backup radio. Then he disappeared into the darkness. The lead man, the one who'd shot him, turned in the passenger seat to look at Lena. That was stupid. Running just makes this harder. Lena's head throbbed. Where are you taking me? Somewhere you can't cause any more problems. Marcus's orders? You don't ask questions anymore. That privilege is revoked. They drove in tense silence. Lena watched the highway signs, trying to orient herself. They were heading north, away from the city, toward empty stretches of rural nothing. Her mind raced. The trooper had called it in. Police would be looking for this SUV, but these men didn't seem concerned, which meant either they had a way to disappear or they didn't plan on being found. After 20 minutes, they exited onto a narrow road. No streetlights, no houses, just trees pressing in from both sides. The SUV pulled up to a warehouse, decrepit, isolated, the kind of place that existed on no map. Chain-link fence, rusted corrugated metal, a single security light casting harsh shadows. They dragged Lena inside. The interior was cavernous, empty except for old machinery and shipping crates stacked against the walls. The air smelled like oil and decay. Marcus Harding waited in the center of the space, checking his watch. When he saw Lena, his expression was unreadable. The accident was unfortunate, but creative. I'll give you that. Lena's vision swam. She forced herself to stay upright. The trooper called it in. Police are coming. The trooper is being transported to a hospital with a gunshot wound. By the time he's coherent enough to give a statement, you'll be gone, and the men who shot him will have airtight alibis. Marcus gestured to a metal chair in the center of the room. Sit. The cleanup team forced her into the chair, produced zip ties again, industrial strength this time, bound her wrists to the armrests, her ankles to the legs. She was trapped, completely immobilized. Marcus pulled up a crate and sat across from her, close enough that she could see the fine lines around his eyes. I want you to understand something, Lena. This isn't personal. You seem like a decent person who made poor choices, but those choices have consequences. You're going to kill me, eventually. But first, we need to know exactly what you told Julian Vale, what files you copied, who else you contacted. I told him everything, copied everything, sent it to every news organization I could find. Marcus smiled. No, you didn't. We've been monitoring your communication since the moment you met with Julian. You took photos of Grayson's computer screen, yes, but you didn't send them anywhere. They're still on the burner phone we confiscated. Lena's heart sank. So the question becomes, Marcus continued, did you tell anyone else? Charlotte Caldwell, perhaps. Your mother. No, I don't believe you. He nodded to one of his men. The man produced a set of tools, gleaming metal instruments that made Lena's stomach turn. We can do this quickly, Marcus said quietly, or we can take our time. Your choice. I didn't tell anyone, I swear. Then let's verify that. The man with the tools moved forward. Lena thrashed against the restraints, but they held firm. Then the warehouse door exploded inward. The blast was deafening, metal shrieking, fire blooming in the darkness. Marcus's men scattered, reaching for weapons. Through the smoke and chaos, figures emerged, moving with tactical precision, weapons raised. Federal agents, real ones this time. At the front was Julian Vale, blood streaming from a cut above his eye, vest strapped over civilian clothes. His eyes found Lena's across the warehouse. Clear the exits, he shouted. Nobody leaves. Gunfire erupted. Marcus dove behind a crate. His men returned fire, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Lena screamed, unable to move, zip-tied to a chair in the middle of a firefight. Bullets sparked off metal. Glass shattered. Someone went down hard, one of Marcus's men clutching his leg. Julian moved like liquid violence, covering ground in bursts, using machinery as cover. He fired twice. Another of Marcus's men dropped. Then he was at Lena's side, knife out, cutting through the zip ties. Can you run? I think so. Then move, now. He hauled her to her feet. Her legs nearly buckled. Julian caught her, practically carrying her toward the blown-out doorway. Behind them, Marcus emerged from cover, weapon raised. Vale! Julian spun, pushing Lena behind him. Fired 3 rounds. Marcus dove back. They made it outside into the cold night air. More federal vehicles surrounded the warehouse, SUVs, tactical vans, agents in body armor forming a perimeter. Julian dragged Lena to an ambulance parked 50 yards away. EMTs rushed forward. Check her for injuries. Don't let her out of your sight. Julian, not now. Let them help you. He disappeared back toward the warehouse before she could respond. The EMTs guided Lena into the ambulance, started checking her vitals, examining the cut on her head, the bruises darkening her arms. Through the open doors, she watched the warehouse. More gunfire, shouting, agents moving in tactical formation, then silence. Minutes crawled past. Lena's hand shook as the EMTs wrapped her wrists in gauze, checked her pupils for concussion signs. Finally, agents began emerging from the warehouse, leading 3 men in handcuffs. Marcus Harding was one of them. His expensive suit was dirty, his expression blank. He saw Lena watching from the ambulance. Their eyes met. He smiled. The gesture sent ice through her veins, like this was just a temporary setback, like he'd be out and operational within days. Julian appeared at the ambulance doors, breathing hard, vest scorched. How is she? Possible concussion, one of the EMTs said. Bruised ribs, lacerations. She needs a full workup at the hospital. Julian nodded. Then he climbed into the ambulance and sat across from Lena. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lena whispered, "They told me you were arrested, that you were suspended, that the investigation was illegal." I was suspended 3 months ago for pursuing the Caldwell case without authorization. Julian's smile was grim. So I went private, recruited a team outside official channels. We've been building a parallel case. The federal agents are the ones who still believe in doing the right thing. Took some convincing, but once I showed them what we had, they came on board. He gestured toward the warehouse. Tonight was supposed to be a controlled arrest of Marcus and his associates. Then we got word about the highway incident. The troopers call. We move fast. Grayson? In custody. We hit the penthouse simultaneously. Found him trying to wipe his computers. Got most of the data before he could finish. Lena felt something break loose in her chest. Relief. Exhaustion. A dozen other emotions she couldn't name. Is it over? Julian's expression darkened. Not yet. What do you mean? Marcus is middle management, same as Grayson. The people above them are still out there, and they don't like loose ends. So I'm still in danger. You're a witness now. The most important one we have. Which means, yes, you're in danger, but you're also protected. 24-hour security until the trial. How long? Months? Maybe a year. Lena closed her eyes. I just want my life back. I know, but that life, the one with Grayson, the penthouse, the perfect surface, that was never real. You understand that now, right? She nodded, felt tears streak down her face. Julian reached across the space between them and took her hand. His grip was warm, solid, real. I should have told you the truth 7 years ago. Should have trusted you to handle it. I'm sorry. Why didn't you? Because I was a coward. Because I thought I was protecting you by staying away. Turns out I was just protecting myself from having to watch you get hurt. His jaw tightened. And then you ended up with Grayson, and I had to watch anyway. You saved my life. You saved your own life. That car crash, that was all you. I just showed up for the cleanup. The ambulance started moving, pulling away from the warehouse. Through the rear windows, Lena watched the scene recede. Federal agents processing evidence, Marcus being loaded into a transport van, the warehouse stark against the night sky. Where are we going? Hospital first, full medical evaluation, then a safe house. Different from the Brooklyn one, secure facility, federal protection. Another cage. Temporary cage. Until the trials are over. Lena leaned back against the gurney, feeling every bruise, every cut, every ache. My mother, I need to call my mother. We'll arrange it. Supervised call. We can't risk anyone tracking you. She must be terrified. Grayson probably told her I was having a breakdown. We'll handle it. Issue a statement. Truth comes out slowly, but it comes out. The ambulance hit a pothole. Pain spiked through Lena's ribs. She gasped. Julian leaned forward. You okay? Define okay. Fair point. They rode in silence for a few minutes. Then Lena asked the question that had been eating at her. The woman before me, the one who's missing. Did you find her? Julian's expression went dark. No, we're still looking. You think she's dead? I think Marcus and Grayson have been doing this a long time, and not everyone survives. The implication hung heavy. Lena was one of the lucky ones. She'd made it out. Others hadn't. The hospital appeared in the distance, lit windows, emergency entrance, the promise of safety. But Lena knew better now. Safety was an illusion. The people who wanted her dead were connected, wealthy, and patient. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The ambulance pulled up to the emergency entrance. EMTs opened the doors, prepared to transfer her inside. Julian stepped out first, scanning the area with tactical awareness. Then he helped Lena down, keeping himself between her and any potential threat. They were halfway to the entrance when Lena saw him. A man in a hospital orderly uniform standing near the sliding doors, watching them with eyes that were too alert, too focused. She knew that look. Had seen it in Marcus's men. Julian. He followed her gaze, saw what she saw. His hand went to his weapon. The orderly moved first, reached inside his uniform. Julian fired. The man went down, gun clattering across the pavement. Chaos erupted. Hospital security rushing out, people screaming, Julian shouting commands. More federal agents appeared from vehicles Lena hadn't noticed, forming a protective circle around her. They rushed her inside, through corridors that blurred together, into a private room that was immediately secured. Julian stood at the door, weapon still drawn, while doctors examined Lena with shaking hands. How did they know we'd be here? She whispered. Someone talked, or someone's monitoring our communications. Julian's expression was granite. We're compromised. A senior agent appeared in the doorway, a woman in her 50s with gray hair and steel eyes. We need to move her, now. This location is burned. Where? Julian demanded. Nowhere local, too much heat. We're going federal. Witness protection protocols. She needs medical attention. She'll get it, but somewhere they can't find her. The woman's gaze shifted to Lena. Pack nothing. Bring nothing. We leave in 5 minutes. Lena looked at Julian. What does that mean? It means you disappear. New name, new location, complete blackout until the trial. For how long? However long it takes. The doctors finished their examination, quick, efficient, noting injuries for the record, bandaged what they could, administered pain medication that made everything feel distant. Then Lena was being moved again. Different ambulance, different route, agents in multiple vehicles running interference. Julian rode with her, silent and tense. They drove for 3 hours, changing vehicles twice, doubling back, using every counter-surveillance technique available. Finally, they pulled up to a nondescript building in a city Lena didn't recognize. Could have been anywhere. That was the point. Inside was a small apartment, functional, anonymous, safe. Federal agents swept it before allowing her inside, posted guards at the door, checked windows, phones, every potential vulnerability. Julian waited until they were alone before speaking. This is it. Maximum security. Nobody knows this location except the agents assigned to you and me. No phone calls, no internet, no contact with anyone from your previous life. My mother will be told you're safe and in protective custody. Nothing more. For her safety and yours. Lena sank onto the couch. The pain medication was wearing off, leaving raw edges. How do I live like this? One day at a time. It's temporary. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Julian knelt in front of her, forcing eye contact. Lena, listen to me. Grayson's arrest made news. Marcus's arrest will make bigger news. The investigation is going public. That means the people above them are going to panic, and panicked people make mistakes. We catch enough of them, build a strong enough case, and you won't have to hide anymore. And if you don't catch them, then you stay hidden. New identity, new life, witness protection full time. That's not a life, that's erasure. It's survival. And right now, that's all that matters. Lena looked around the sterile apartment that would be her prison. No personal effects, no photos, nothing that marked it as hers. Will you stay? The question came out smaller than she intended. Julian's expression softened. I'm assigned to your protective detail, so yeah, I'm staying. In the same apartment? Different room, but close. Always close. Something in his tone made her look up. Meet his eyes. The distance of 7 years collapsed in that moment. All the hurt, all the anger, all the unfinished business hanging between them. I never stopped, Julian started. Don't. Lena held up a hand. Not now. I can't process that right now. He nodded, stood, put professional distance back between them. Get some rest. We have a long road ahead. He left her alone in the apartment. Lena heard him talking to the guards outside, coordinating shifts, setting protocols. She moved to the window, reinforced glass, she noticed. Bulletproof. Outside, the city was alive with lights and movement, people living normal lives, going to jobs, seeing friends, making plans. Lena's life had been reduced to this room, these walls, this silence. She thought about Grayson in a holding cell somewhere, about Marcus facing federal charges, about the network above them, panicking, scrambling to protect themselves. And she thought about Charlotte still out there with Emma, probably terrified. Lena pulled out the burner phone the agents had given her, secured, encrypted, monitored. She wasn't supposed to make calls, but she had to try. She dialed Charlotte's number from memory. It rang 4 times, then Charlotte's voice, wary. Hello? It's Lena. Silence. Then, how did you... I don't have much time. Are you safe? I don't know. I saw the news, Grayson's arrest. I don't know if I'm safe. They'll come for you, for testimony. You need to cooperate. I know. My lawyer's already been contacted. But Lena... Charlotte's voice cracked. I'm scared. If they know I talked, if Marcus's people find out, federal protection, demand it. Don't stay in Boston. Move Emma somewhere they can't find you. I can't just uproot her life. Better uprooted than dead. The harsh truth silenced them both. Finally, Charlotte whispered, Thank you for believing me, for going to Julian. Thank you for sending that message. It saved my life. Be careful, Lena. These people, they don't forgive. I know. She ended the call before the agents could trace it longer than necessary. Julian appeared in the doorway, expression tight. You called Charlotte. She needed to know she's in danger. She is. So are you. That call was monitored by people who'll try to triangulate her location. Then get her protection too. Already in motion. But Lena, you can't make calls without authorization. I know you're trying to help, but it puts you at risk. Everything puts me at risk. Hiding puts me at risk. Testifying puts me at risk. Living puts me at risk. Julian didn't argue, just looked at her with something that might have been respect. You're stronger than I gave you credit for. I'm terrified. Strength and terror aren't mutually exclusive. He moved to leave, then stopped. There's something you should know. The trial date's been set. 3 months from now. Federal courthouse, maximum security. You'll testify against Grayson, Marcus, and 6 others we've arrested in the sweep. 3 months in this apartment. 3 months staying alive. After that, you're free. If I survive the trial, you'll have protection, armed escorts, the whole system. The same system that let Marcus operate for years? The same system that has people on his payroll? Julian's jaw tightened. You're right to be paranoid, but we've vetted everyone on this detail. I trust them with my life. More importantly, I trust them with yours. Why? Why do you care this much? The question hung between them. Julian met her eyes. Because 7 years ago, I made the choice to walk away, to protect you by leaving, and I've regretted it every single day since. I'm not making that choice again. Whatever happens, I'm here, until this is over. The raw honesty disarmed her. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it. His expression darkened. What? Report from the hospital. The orderly we shot. He's connected. Russian mob ties. Which means Marcus reached out to people outside the normal network. What does that mean? It means the hit on you just went international, and the price on your head is high enough that professionals are taking the contract. Lena felt the room tilt. How do we stop that? We don't. We just survive it. Julian's phone buzzed again. He answered, listened, his expression growing grimmer. Understood. Increase the perimeter. Nobody gets within 2 blocks. He hung up. What now? Now we wait, and we prepare. Because in 3 months, you're going to walk into that courthouse and end this. But first, we have to make sure you live that long. Outside, night had fully fallen. The city glittered with indifferent beauty. Inside, Lena sat in her protected cage and wondered if 3 months was long enough to prepare for war, or if any amount of time would be enough to survive what was coming. Julian stood at the window, watching the street below with the stillness of a predator, and Lena realized with absolute clarity that this wasn't the end of her nightmare. It was just the beginning of the final battle, one she had to win, or die trying. The apartment fell silent except for the hum of surveillance equipment and the distant sound of traffic. Lena closed her eyes and tried to remember what normal felt like. She couldn't. That life was gone. Burned away in the wreckage of Grayson's lies and Marcus's violence. What remained was this: a woman in a safe house, a witness with a target on her back, a survivor preparing for the fight of her life. 3 months, 90 days. Lena opened her eyes and looked at Julian's silhouette against the window. Teach me, she said quietly. He turned. Teach you what? How to fight, how to survive, how to be ready. Julian studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, we start tomorrow, 6 a.m. Why wait? A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Because you need sleep, and because revenge is a dish best served with proper preparation. This isn't revenge, it's justice. Sometimes they look the same. He left her alone with that thought. Lena lay down on the unfamiliar bed in the unfamiliar room and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in the city, Grayson sat in a cell, probably confident he'd find a way out. Somewhere else, Marcus was making calls, pulling strings, activating contingencies. And somewhere in the shadows, professional killers were studying her photo, calculating angles, planning approaches. But Lena wasn't the same woman who'd walked toward that fountain in Central Park what felt like a lifetime ago. That woman had been afraid, uncertain, looking for someone to save her. This woman was done waiting for rescue. 3 months until trial. 3 months to transform from victim to weapon. 3 months to make sure that when she walked into that courthouse, she was ready for anything. Lena closed her eyes and made herself a promise. She would survive this. She would testify. She would watch Grayson's empire burn. And then, finally, she would be free. But first, she had to make it through the next 90 days. The hardest 90 days of her life were about to begin, and she was done running. The sirens grew louder, cutting through the ringing in Lena's ears. Red and blue lights painted the wreckage in stuttering color. She lay on the cold asphalt, zip ties still cutting into her wrists, and watched the emergency vehicles approach through vision that kept blurring and clearing. 2 ambulances, 3 police cruisers, a fire truck. Too many witnesses for Marcus to disappear her quietly. The thought gave her just enough strength to stay conscious. Paramedics surrounded her within seconds, their voices overlapping in urgent professional tones. Someone cut the zip ties. Her hands fell forward, useless and numb. Someone else pressed an oxygen mask over her face. "Can you hear me? What's your name?" Lena tried to speak. Nothing came out but a rasp. "Don't try to talk. You're in shock. We're taking you to the hospital." They loaded her onto a stretcher. Through the chaos, she saw police examining the wreckage, saw them approach the driver's body, saw one of them radio for backup. The passenger guard was still missing, either dead in the woods or he'd crawled away. Either way, Marcus would know what happened, would know she'd survived. The ambulance doors closed, and Lena let herself sink into the darkness, pulling at her edges. God. She woke in a hospital bed with fluorescent lights burning her eyes and machines beeping a steady rhythm beside her. Her entire body felt like one massive bruise. When she tried to sit up, pain lanced through her ribs. "Easy." A nurse appeared beside her, gentle hands pressing her back down. "You've got 3 cracked ribs, a concussion, and about 100 stitches holding you together. Don't move." "How long?" 18 hours. You've been out since they brought you in." Lena's throat closed. 18 hours. Anything could have happened in 18 hours. "There are police outside who want to talk to you, and a man who says he's your lawyer." The nurse's expression suggested she didn't quite believe the lawyer's story. "Should I let them in?" "The lawyer. Just him." The nurse nodded and disappeared. 2 minutes later, a man in an expensive suit walked through the door. He was maybe 40, with sharp eyes and the kind of face that made a living in courtrooms. He wasn't anyone Lena had ever seen before. "Miss Whitmore, my name is Thomas Garrett. I'm an attorney with the Southern District of New York." He pulled out credentials and showed them to her. Federal prosecutor. "I need to ask you some questions about the accident. I want to see Julian Vale first." Garrett's expression didn't change. "Mr. Vale is currently in federal custody pending investigation into multiple charges. He's not available for visitors." "Then I'm not talking." "Miss Whitmore, 2 men are dead. The driver of the vehicle you were in and a second body we found in the woods nearby. We need to understand what happened." "I was kidnapped. They drugged me. I caused the crash trying to escape." The words came out flat, rehearsed. "That's what happened." Garrett studied her for a long moment. Then he pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. "I know about Grayson Caldwell. I know about Marcus Harding. And I know Julian Vale has been building a case against them for the past 4 years. He leaned forward. "What I don't know is how much you've seen, how much you can testify to." Lena's pulse spiked. "You believe Julian? I believe evidence. And right now I have 2 dead men with connections to known criminal enterprises, a kidnapping victim who happens to be engaged to a person of interest, and a car crash that looks a lot like an escape attempt." Garrett pulled out a tablet and swiped through files. "I also have this." He turned the screen toward her. Security footage. Grainy but clear enough, Lena being dragged through the penthouse by Grayson's security detail. Timestamp, 11:47 p.m., the night of her failed wedding. "Where did you get that?" "Julian Vale. He'd been monitoring Caldwell's building for months. The footage uploaded to a secure server before he was taken into custody." Garrett swiped to another file. He also uploaded this. Audio recording. Grayson's voice, cold and clinical. "Secure her. Marcus is sending a cleanup team." Then Marcus, "You, on the other hand, are about to disappear." Lena closed her eyes. Julian had been watching, recording, building his case even as he was being arrested. "There's more," Garrett continued. "Bank records, corporate filings. Witness statements from people who finally agreed to talk once they learned Vale had protection in place." He paused, and a video file showing the moments before David Brennan's car accident, the one that wasn't an accident. "I saw that video. On Grayson's computer. Can you testify to that? I can testify to all of it. Everything I saw. Everything they said. Lena met his eyes. But I want Julian released first. And I want protection. Real protection. Not more people on Grayson's payroll. Vale's release depends on him being cleared of the charges against him. That investigation is ongoing. Garrett's tone suggested he had opinions about those charges. As for protection, you're already under federal watch. There are 2 agents outside this room right now. No one gets in without clearance. Marcus Harding has resources you can't imagine. So does the United States government when properly motivated. And Miss Whitmore, you've given us significant motivation. Garrett stood. I need a formal statement. Everything from the beginning. Can you do that? Lena nodded. It took 6 hours to tell it all. Garrett recorded every word, asked clarifying questions, cross-referenced her testimony against evidence he'd already compiled. By the end, Lena's voice was hoarse and her head was pounding. But it was done. All of it. On record. Garrett saved the files and stood. We'll be arresting Grayson Caldwell within the next 12 hours. Marcus Harding and 3 others will be taken into custody simultaneously. This is a coordinated operation involving multiple agencies. What about the others? The people Grayson mentioned, the ones above him. That investigation will continue. But Caldwell and Harding are the immediate targets. Garrett moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Julian Vale was right about everything. He just went about proving it the wrong way. Will he go to prison? That's not my case. But between you and me, the prosecutors handling his charges are good people. They'll see the bigger picture. After he left, Lena lay in the hospital bed and stared at the ceiling. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. Outside her door, federal agents stood guard. She was safe. For now. But safety felt hollow when she didn't know what came next. They arrested Grayson at his law office the following morning. Lena watched it on the news from her hospital bed, volume low. The footage showed him being led out in handcuffs, his expression carefully blank. No emotion, no reaction. Even in defeat, he was controlled. Marcus Harding's arrest happened simultaneously at his estate in Connecticut. He fought. It took 4 agents to subdue him. The news showed him screaming about lawyers and lawsuits and constitutional violations. Lena turned off the television and closed her eyes. 3 days later, they released her from the hospital with instructions to rest and a prescription for pain medication she had no intention of filling. A federal agent drove her to a safe house in New Jersey, a bland suburban home that could have belonged to anyone. She spent the first week sleeping and trying to remember what it felt like to not be afraid. The second week, Garrett visited with updates. The investigation was expanding. More arrests were coming. Charlotte had agreed to testify about years of abuse and manipulation. Other victims were coming forward. The empire was crumbling. How's Julian? Lena asked during one of Garrett's visits. Suspended from duty pending internal review, but the charges are being dropped. His methods were questionable, but his evidence is solid. Garrett hesitated. He's asked about you multiple times. Tell him I'm fine. You could tell him yourself. He's no longer in custody. Lena shook her head. Not yet. She wasn't ready. Didn't know if she'd ever be ready. The trial began 4 months later. Lena testified for 3 days, walking the jury through every detail. Grayson sat at the defense table in an expensive suit, watching her with that same blank expression. She didn't look away, didn't flinch. When she described finding the video of David Brennan's murder, Charlotte broke down in the gallery. When she recounted being drugged and kidnapped, her mother wept silently in the front row. When she finished, the courtroom was silent. Grayson's attorney tried to discredit her during cross-examination, suggested she was mentally unstable, that Julian Vale had manipulated her, that her testimony was the product of a breakdown in revenge fantasy. Lena sat in the witness box and calmly recited facts, dates, times, direct quotes. She didn't get emotional, didn't get defensive, just told the truth. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. Guilty on all counts. Marcus Harding's trial ended the same way 2 weeks later. Both men were sentenced to 25 years to life. Lena watched the sentencing from the gallery. When the judge read the verdict, Grayson finally showed emotion, a flicker of rage before the mask slammed back into place. He looked at her once as they led him away. She met his eyes and felt nothing. Oh, 6 months after the trial, Lena stood in front of a brownstone in Boston. Different address from Charlotte's place. Smaller, quieter. She'd spent the months since the trial in therapy, working through layers of trauma she hadn't realized she'd accumulated. The therapist told her healing wasn't linear, that some days would be harder than others. Today was one of the hard days. She knocked on the door. Charlotte answered. She looked different, lighter somehow, despite everything. Emma peeked out from behind her mother's legs, curious. "Lena, come in." They sat in Charlotte's kitchen drinking coffee while Emma did homework at the table. The conversation was careful at first, polite. Two women connected by trauma trying to figure out how to exist in the aftermath. "I testified at Marcus's trial," Charlotte said eventually. "Told them everything, about David, about the years of threats. All of it." "I know, Garrett told me. I should have done it sooner, should have protected you before you did what you could. We both did." Lena set down her coffee. "I came to say thank you for sending that message, for warning me." Charlotte's eyes filled. "I was so scared you wouldn't believe me. Part of me didn't want to. It would have been easier to ignore it. But you didn't." "No, I didn't." Lena glanced at Emma, absorbed in her math problems. "How is she?" "Better? Therapy helps. She doesn't ask about him anymore." Charlotte's voice was quiet. "I told her he made bad choices and won't be coming home. That's all she needs to know for now." They talked for another hour, about healing, about the future, about the strange solidarity of surviving the same monster. When Lena left, Charlotte walked her to the door. "There's someone else who's been asking about you," Charlotte said. "Julian Vale. He called a few weeks ago, wanted to know if you'd reached out to me." Lena's chest tightened. "What did you tell him?" "That you'd talk to him when you were ready, and that if he cared about you at all, he'd wait." Charlotte smiled. "He said he'd been waiting for 7 years. A little longer wouldn't kill him." Lena found Julian at a coffee shop in Brooklyn. Not the safe house. Not some dramatic location. Just a quiet place with good coffee and anonymous crowds. He looked different. Older. Tired. The sharpness she remembered had been worn down by months of investigation and suspension and waiting. When he saw her, he stood, then seemed unsure whether to approach. Lena crossed to his table and sat down. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "You look good," Julian said finally. "Considering. You look terrible." He laughed, rough and genuine. "Yeah, it's been a rough year." They dropped the charges. Technically suspended pending good behavior. The feds don't like admitting they were wrong. He turned his coffee cup in slow circles. "Garrett said you testified, that you were incredible. I told the truth, that's all." "That's everything." The silence stretched, not uncomfortable but weighted with things unsaid. "Why did you really come back?" Lena asked. "After 7 years, why reach out now?" Julian met her eyes. "Because I was tracking Grayson's pattern, and I saw you in his life, and I couldn't—" He stopped, started again. "I couldn't let him do to you what he did to the others, even if it meant breaking cover, even if it meant destroying my case." "You didn't destroy it, you built it. I almost got you killed. You saved my life. I dragged you into hell. You gave me a way out." Lena leaned forward. "I was drowning in that life, Julian. Slow and quiet, and I didn't even realize it was happening. You showed me I was drowning. Whatever happened after, that's not on you." Julian's jaw worked. "I should have done it differently. Should have trusted you with the truth from the beginning. Maybe, or maybe I wouldn't have believed you." Lena wrapped her hands around her own coffee cup. "I've spent the last 6 months in therapy trying to understand how I ended up with someone like Grayson, how I didn't see it. He was good at hiding, and I was good at ignoring red flags because I was lonely and scared, and he offered something that looked like stability." She met his eyes. "That's on me, not you. You were a victim. I was a victim who made choices, some good, some terrible. Both things can be true." Julian studied her face. "You really have been in therapy. Twice a week. She's teaching me to stop blaming myself for things I couldn't control while taking responsibility for things I could." Lena smiled. "It's exhausting." "Sounds like it." They talked for 2 hours. About the trial. About the investigation that was still ongoing into the larger network. About Charlotte and Emma. About Lena's mother, who'd flown out after the arrest and stayed for 3 weeks. About everything except what came next. Finally, as the coffee shop began to close, Julian asked the question Lena had been waiting for. What are you going to do now? I don't know. That's the first honest answer I've given in a long time. She gathered her things. I'm staying with my mother in California for a while, figuring out what I want instead of what someone else wants for me. That sounds healthy. It sounds terrifying, but I'm doing it anyway. Outside, the Brooklyn street was cold and dark. Lena pulled her coat tighter. Julian walked her to the subway station. At the entrance, he stopped. Can I ask you something? Depends on the question. Do you hate me? For leaving 7 years ago? For dragging you into this? For any of it? Lena considered the question carefully. No, I don't hate you. I don't know what I feel about you, honestly. You're tied up with the worst period of my life, and the moment I finally woke up from it, that's complicated. Yeah, it is. But I don't hate you. Julian's exhale was visible in the cold air. That's something. It's all I've got right now. I'll take it. Lena descended 2 steps, then turned back. Julian? Yeah? Thank you. For giving a damn. Even when it cost you everything. It didn't cost me everything. Just almost everything. His smile was sad. The parts that mattered survived. She didn't ask what he meant, just nodded and continued down into the subway. 2 years later, Lena stood in a small gallery in San Francisco, watching people examine photographs she'd taken. Black and white images of the city, of people, of moments that spoke to resilience and survival without being explicit about either. Her first show. Small, but hers. Her mother stood beside her, beaming with pride. Your father would have loved this. I know. The photography had started as therapy, a way to process everything that had happened, to reclaim her ability to see beauty instead of just threats. It had become something more. A career, maybe? Or at least a beginning. Charlotte had flown out for the opening. She stood across the gallery with Emma, now 7 and growing into a confidence Charlotte had never shown at that age. They'd stayed in touch, not close, but connected in the way of people who'd survived the same war. Julian hadn't come. Lena hadn't invited him. They'd exchanged a few emails over the past 2 years, brief updates, nothing deep. He was working as a consultant for federal cases now, using his investigative skills in ways that wouldn't get him suspended. She was glad he'd found solid ground, but she wasn't ready for more than that. Maybe someday, maybe never. Both options felt okay. At the end of the evening, after the crowds had left and the gallery owner was locking up, Lena stood alone among her photographs. She titled the collection Aftermath, images that captured what came after the storm, the rebuilding, the scars that remained and the strength that grew around them. The centerpiece was a self-portrait. Lena's face, half in shadow, half in light. Eyes that had seen too much, but weren't dead yet. It was the first photo she'd taken after leaving the hospital. The first time she'd been able to look at herself and see someone worth documenting. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Saw your show online. Congratulations. You're braver than I ever gave you credit for. Lena stared at the message for a long moment. Then she typed a response. Thanks. How's the consulting work? The reply came quickly. Boring. Lucrative. I miss the field, but not the bureaucracy. You doing okay? Some days. Not others. Learning to be okay with that. That's all any of us can do. Lena hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then she typed, If you're ever in San Francisco, let me know. Coffee, maybe? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I'd like that. No pressure. Just coffee. Just coffee. She pocketed the phone and walked out of the gallery into the San Francisco night. The city stretched out before her, full of lights and possibilities and a future that was entirely undefined. For the first time in years, that didn't terrify her. 3 months after the gallery show, Lena sat in a coffee shop in North Beach waiting. Julian walked in exactly on time, looking less worn than the last time she'd seen him. He'd cut his hair, updated his wardrobe. He looked like someone who'd started sleeping through the night again. Hey. Hey. He sat down across from her. Thanks for meeting me. Thanks for flying out. They ordered coffee and fell into the careful dance of people who shared history but hadn't earned familiarity. They talked about work. About Lena's upcoming second show. About a consulting case Julian had just wrapped that reminded him why he'd become an investigator in the first place. Then the conversation found deeper water. I read an interview you gave, Julian said, about the photography. You said art saved you when nothing else could. That's true. Did I save you, or did I just blow up your life? Lena stirred her coffee slowly. Both, neither. You gave me information I needed. What I did with it was my choice. That's generous. It's honest. She met his eyes. I spent 2 years in therapy learning the difference between what happened to me and what I chose. You didn't make me go to Boston, didn't make me access Grayson's computer, didn't make me crash that car. Those were my choices. Desperate, terrified choices, but mine. I could have handled it better. So could I. So could everyone involved, but we didn't. We survived instead. That counts for something. Julian smiled. Your therapist is good. She's excellent. I'll give you her number if you want. I have my own, FBI mandated after the suspension. Does it help? Some days. They talked for 3 hours. About the trial's aftermath. About Grayson's appeals, which kept getting denied. About Marcus Harding, who tried to orchestrate an attack on a federal prosecutor from prison and ended up in solitary. About healing and what it actually looked like when you stopped romanticizing it. When they finally stood to leave, Julian walked her to her car. Can I ask you something? He said. Depends on the question. Are you happy? Lena considered it. I'm working on it. Some days I get close. Other days I'm just surviving. But I'm choosing it. All of it. That's new. That's everything. She unlocked her car, then turned back. What about you? Are you happy? Julian looked at the San Francisco skyline, thinking. I'm learning to let go of the cases I can't solve, the people I couldn't save. It's hard, but I'm trying. That's something. It's a start. Lena got in her car, then rolled down the window. Julian? Yeah? I'm glad you came back. Not just then. Now. I'm glad we can talk without it being a crisis. His smile was genuine. Me too. She drove away, watching him get smaller in her rearview mirror, not disappearing this time, just receding. The difference mattered. Possessive. 5 years after the trial, Lena received a letter from Grayson. She almost threw it away without opening it. But curiosity won. The handwriting was the same, precise, controlled. Lena, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect forgiveness or understanding. I'm writing because my therapist says I need to take accountability for my actions, without expecting anything in return. I destroyed your life. I manipulated you. I put you in danger because you threatened my operation. Everything you testified to was true. I was a monster wearing a well-tailored suit. I've spent 5 years in here trying to understand how I became that. The answer isn't satisfying. No dramatic childhood trauma, no singular event. Just choices. Small compromises that became bigger ones until I couldn't see the person I'd turned into. You deserved better. Charlotte deserved better. Emma deserved better. I know this letter changes nothing. I'm still in here. You're still out there healing from what I did. But I needed you to know that I see it now. What I was. What I did. I hope you found peace. Real peace. The kind I never gave you. Gee, Lena read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. She didn't respond. Didn't need to. But she kept it. A reminder that even monsters could evolve, that accountability mattered even when forgiveness wasn't coming. That night, she called Julian. They talked once a month now. Genuine friendship built slowly over years of careful rebuilding. Grayson sent me a letter. What did it say? She summarized it. Julian was quiet for a long moment. How do you feel about it? I don't know. It doesn't change anything, but it matters that he said it. Yeah, it does. They talked about other things. Julian's new relationship with a prosecutor he'd met on a case. Lena's upcoming trip to photograph rural communities in Montana. Before they hung up, Julian said, You know what I realized recently? What? You were the bravest person in that entire situation. Not me, not the prosecutors, you. You had everything to lose and you chose truth anyway. Lena's throat tightened. I chose survival. Same thing. In your case, they were the same thing. After the call ended, Lena sat in her apartment, Her own apartment, paid for with money she'd earned from her photography, and looked at the life she'd built. It wasn't the life she'd imagined at 25. It wasn't the fairy tale Grayson had promised. It was smaller, quieter, built on foundations she'd poured herself, and it was hers. Chan. 7 years after the trial, Lena stood at Bethesda Fountain in Central Park, the same place Julian had first warned her to run. She came here every year on the anniversary, not to remember the trauma, but to mark the distance she'd traveled from it. Emma was 13 now. Charlotte had sent photos, a smiling girl with her mother's eyes and none of Grayson's coldness. Grayson and Marcus were still in prison. Both had been denied parole. Julian had moved to Seattle. He'd gotten married last year. Lena had been invited but couldn't make it. She'd sent a gift and a card that said what mattered. "I'm happy for you." She meant it. The angel statue rose above the fountain, serene and unchanged. Tourists took photos. Couples walked hand in hand. Life continued, indifferent to the private wars fought in its midst. Lena's phone buzzed. Her girlfriend's name appeared on the screen. "Still at the fountain?" "Yeah. Heading home soon. Take your time. Dinner's not ready yet. Love you." "Love you too." She pocketed the phone and took one last look at the fountain. She'd survived. Not by becoming harder or colder or more cynical, by choosing every single day to believe that survival wasn't enough, that she deserved more than just existing. It had taken 7 years. Therapy. False starts, relationships that taught her what she wouldn't accept anymore. But she'd gotten there. Lena turned away from the fountain and walked toward the park exit, toward the subway that would take her home, toward a dinner with someone who loved her without needing to control her, toward a future that was uncertain and imperfect and entirely her own. The angel watched her go, offering neither judgment nor blessing, just witness. And that was enough.